Hello, hello, my girlie. Welcome to Talks with SAE, the only late night, thought provoking, giggle inducing podcast for my ladies whose days melt into their nights. I'm Zahra, your tulip-loving, heels obsessed host who, just like you, is trying to figure it all out while finding moments of balance, discipline, and self love else. If you haven't already, be sure to follow and subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode. Tonight, we're diving into the power of building and nurturing a strong support system. But before we dive in, I want to remind you to sign up for our email newsletter where you'll get all the exclusive content, free resources, and yes, holiday goodies. You can find the link to sign up in the show notes and in the YouTube description box. Let's dive in, shall we? My girlie, as human beings, connection is part of who we are. We are innately social animals, yet in today's fast paced, hyper digital world where everything moves so quickly and everything's online, it's easy to feel disconnected. I mean, think about how unstoppable you feel when you have trusted people in your corner. That's what having a strong support network does for you. It's like the safety net that catches you when life gets overwhelming. Building connections isn't just for when life is hard, and building a strong support network isn't for when life is just hard. It's about creating relationships that help you thrive no matter what. Surrounding yourself with people who inspire you, who challenge you, and people who have your back, that's what makes life better. That's what contributes to having a great quality of life. These are the people who will remind you of your worth, who see your potential, and who help you grow simply by being there and simply by being themselves as well. And when we talk about building a strong support network, it's easy to think about friends, family, or a romantic partner. But support can come from all sorts of places. It could be your coworkers, a classmate, or even someone you casually know. Sometimes people you wouldn't think twice about can end up being a lifeline when you need it most. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about human connection. And one great way to find those connections is actually by putting yourself in environments where people are working towards something bigger than themselves. I think a good example of this is volunteering. So, whether it's helping out at a community event or joining a local initiative, being around others who are passionate about the same cause that you're passionate about or that you're interested in helps build authentic, no pressure connections. There's no forced small talk because you're already bonded by a shared purpose, right? And that actually made me think of mentors. I think mentors can play such a pivotal role in shaping your journey, especially as a woman navigating the complexities of today's world. Mentors, they can provide wisdom from their own experiences. They can offer advice when you're feeling stuck and help you gain clarity during moments of uncertainty. And mentorship doesn't have to be this formal, structured relationship with someone in a position of authority. It can come from peers, colleagues, or even people from your community who genuinely want to see you succeed. The key, I think the key here is that a mentor is someone who listens, who guides, and who offers you constructive feedback while also providing a safe space for growth and reflection. And having someone who believes in you in that way, especially when you may not fully believe in yourself, can push you to honestly go further than you ever thought possible. They can open doors you didn't know existed. They can challenge you to think bigger. When you find a mentor who truly resonates with you, it can be one of the most transformative relationships you have. It just, the way it helps strengthen your support network is top tier. Top tier, my girly. So take a second to think about the places where you already feel supported. It could be a yoga class, a professional group, or even a local meetup that you participate in. These spaces can be a great foundation for expanding your network. But just note that building connections doesn't need to be overwhelming. It's really about showing up in the places where you feel seen and valued, because you'd be so surprised at how quickly the right people can come into your life when you start looking in the right places. And in a world that glorifies having a large circle of friends or connections, it's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the more people you know, then the stronger your network, right? But that couldn't be further from the truth. You can be surrounded by hundreds of people or have 50 best friends, but still feel isolated, still feel disconnected and unsupported. That's because true support, my girlie, like true, genuine support, doesn't come from the number of people in your life or in your network. It comes from the depth of the connections you have. Think about the people you turn to in times of need. And I'm not talking about like times of need when you're at a low point, just in times of need when you know you can't do something or you don't understand something or you just know this isn't your specialty or you're not good at this. I bet it's not the 50 acquaintances or 50 best friends you chat with at every party or the friends who only show up when it's convenient. It's honestly those few trusted people who know you deeply. They're the ones who understand your values, your visions, your fears, and your strengths. And they're the ones who show up when you need them to, no questions asked. When we're caught up in the pressure to maintain a large network of friends or people, we overlook the impact of real connections. They take a lot of effort, a lot of consistency, and they take an incredible amount of vulnerability. And honestly, girly, vulnerability is the secret. It's when you allow yourself to be seen, flaws and all, that the strongest bonds are formed. When I think of my own support system, I know every single one of them will show up for me regardless of how good or bad the situation is. And my support system consists of less than 5 people. And I know you might think, oh my God, like how can you have just 5 people? How is that a support system? My girly, quality over quantity, always. Always. I want to talk about authenticity for a moment. We live in a world where filters literally and metaphorically have become the norm. And because of that, we've been conditioned to present a curated version of ourselves that looks quote unquote perfect. But the people who will truly support you are the ones who value you for exactly who you are, not for who you're pretending to be in order to fit in. So just please keep that in mind as you're thinking about your own support system. But let's talk about what support looks like. When you are creating a support network, it's really important to know what support actually looks like. And support isn't a one size fits all, right? Like, it's not just about the big moments, like celebrating a promotion that you got at work, or a birthday, or an engagement, or graduating. Honestly, support shows up in quiet, everyday ways that can make the biggest difference in the quality of your life. Sometimes you don't need someone to fix it or someone to give you advice. You just need someone to listen to you that you don't have to pay, right? Because you have to pay a therapist to offer you emotional support. But sometimes that's not what you want. Those times when you're talking to your friend or your husband and you don't even want them to say anything, you just want them to hear you out and hold space, right? That's emotional support. And honestly, it can be one of the most comforting things you can receive, because emotional support is that person telling you, by showing you, hey, I got you. I'm here for you. What you are saying, what you are experiencing, it matters. Another type of support is practical support. This kind of support is the help you need when life is lifing. So maybe it's asking one of your girls to help with the kids, or someone offering you a ride to your dentist appointment. These simple, practical acts of kindness and thoughtfulness feel like a lifesaver when you're drowning in your responsibilities, right? Because as girlies, I know so many of you listening, you are trying to juggle so many things. You're trying to juggle all of life's demands for you. You're trying to figure your life out. You're trying to enjoy your life. And you're also trying to make sure that you're good in this life, right? And all of that can be so overwhelming. So having people within your support system to help you with all of those tasks and responsibility, it's so amazing. It's so amazing. And I just want to mention that what's important when it comes to support is recognizing what you need in the moment. So if you're emotionally drained, don't be afraid to ask someone to just listen. and make sure it's someone that you trust. Don't just go willy nilly telling everyone your business, because not everybody is going to be for you and not everybody is here to support you. Sometimes people just want to hear the terrible things going on in your life so they can feel better about themselves. So, be wary of that and use your judgment. But as I was saying, if you are emotionally drained, ask someone to just listen to you if that's what you need. And if you are physically exhausted or overwhelmed, do not hesitate to ask for help. And sometimes you just need a hug. I actually, I'm saying this because it reminded me of one of my friends who I love dearly. We were talking on the phone. As he's talking, I'm like, sounds like you need a hug, and he's like, yeah, honestly, yeah. And I was like, okay, I'll be there. Give me like, I think I said, give me like 20 minutes or 30 minutes. I don't know. But I went and I gave him a hug and that was it. Like, I didn't think anything of it, right? But later on, he had mentioned it to me and mentioning how, like, he's not used to people doing stuff like that for him. And for me, it was like nothing. The way I viewed it was like, my friend needs support right now. The type of support I can offer him is a hug. So I'm going to go give him a hug. And that was it. And I think it's so important to be that friend for people as well and not just be on the receiving end of things, right? Because here at Talks with Say and here in our community, we give as good as we get, right? But back to what I was saying, if you just need a hug, ask for one and be okay with someone saying no to you if it's out of their comfort zone. Not everybody likes that, and that's something that not everyone is comfortable with, right? And if anything, hug yourself, girly, hug yourself. It might feel awkward. It's okay. Sometimes you just gotta hug yourself, but don't ever look at asking for help as a weakness. It's a form of self-respect because you're honoring your own limits and allowing others to show up for you, which is a very crucial and important thing when it comes to cultivating a support network for yourself. If you don't know who's showing up for you and you don't allow others to show up for you, then how are you going to know who really is for you and who really is part of your support system? Okay, so now I want to touch a little bit on maintaining your support network. I feel like many people show up when things are wrong, when things are going bad, but it's also important to show up when things are going great. You want a support system that nurtures you consistently. When things are good, they're nurturing you. When things are bad, they're nurturing you. When things are in between, they're nurturing you. Because think about it, relationships aren't just about showing up when you need something, it's about being there even when life is going smoothly for you, right? So, a quick text to check in on one of your girlfriends, saying, hey, how are you doing? Like, seriously, how are you actually doing? Or if you know someone is struggling, reach out to them. What I'm trying to say here is when you offer you and when you offer consistency to others, it doesn't have to be big ways, in little ways, so long as you're being consistent. The consistency of those little things, the consistency of those little actions, they turn connections into lifelong support systems, right? Because they remind people that you're not just there when it's convenient for you, you're there because you care. This is where reciprocal support is very key. You have to give as good as you get. But in order to get, you have to give. By the way, this isn't about keeping score or expecting something in return. It's about the mutual trust that builds over time. When you show up for someone in their hard moments and in their good moments and in their moments in between, they'll do the same for you later on. And it creates a beautiful balance. We're all about balance here. And that's also how trust is built. And that's how you strengthen your bond and you strengthen your support system. So when you decide you want to grow your support system, please make sure you're intentional about it. Don't just fill space for the sake of filling space. Because, my girlie, too often we get caught up in the idea that strong support system is about having lots of people around you. But as I mentioned it earlier, quality always tops quantity. The people you surround yourself with should be those who lift you up, those who ground you, who challenge your thinking, and who stand by you when you need them the most. The beauty of an intentional support system is that it meets you where you're at and it doesn't expect you to be perfect, right? Because I've mentioned it already. The people who truly are in your support system are the people who value you for who you are, not who you're trying to be. And so they know you're a work in progress. They know sometimes you're a mess, or most times you're a mess. They know all of that. And they still value you. They still cherish you. They still cheer you on, right? And it's less about constantly doing for others and more about like creating a space for people who offer you a sense of belonging. My girlie, where do you belong? Think about this, please. Where do you belong? And when you think about it, you can't come up with an answer immediately, right? Because so many of us don't think about this. So many of us are so wrapped up in just trying to make everything look as perfect as possible without belonging to anything. And part of belonging is belonging to a strong support system, right? When I say belonging, I'm talking about like belonging in the sense of you know who you are. And if somebody tells you who you are, you'll be like, no, 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 no. I know who I am. I know to my core. I know who I am. And I can stand 10 toes down proudly at the woman that I am. That is what I mean by a sense of belonging. And your support system helps you truly see who you are. It helps you truly see where you belong, right? Because it's a safe place where you can show up as your most authentic self. And it's knowing you're surrounded by people who don't need you to be like on all the time. But it's also about being honest with yourself and asking yourself, what do you actually need right now? Who do you need right now? Sometimes we think we need advice or answers when in reality, we just need someone to listen without judgment, right? How many of the people that you know can you go to and talk with and know that they're not judging you? Know that as you're talking, as you're speaking, they're being present for you and genuinely listening to you without waiting to give their input, right? Sometimes we just need tough love, a friend or a mentor who is not afraid to call us out when we're falling into old patterns or when we're avoiding what really matters or when we are about to go down a very, very unsafe path. You need those people too, right? And when you get clear on what you need and who you need, you'll start noticing the people who can give it to you, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely care about seeing you thrive. And that is what is so important about a support system. It's genuine, it's authentic, it's intentional. And there's also this part of intentional expansion of your support system that's not always easy. And that's seeking out new spaces and new experiences, putting yourself in environments where you can meet people who share your values and your visions. And this ties into what I mentioned earlier about volunteering. Sometimes seeking out new spaces means stepping out of your comfort zone and attending, workshops or joining groups, because it's in these spaces where you'll connect with those who not only understand your struggles or your goals or your visions, but they also want to see you succeed, right? And I just want to say this isn't about like collecting a bunch of contacts or finding a large group to call your support system. The focus should be on intention and depth, not numbers. You want people who are not only there to celebrate your wins, but who are also willing to hold space for you without judgment. I know a lot of what I'm saying sounds so repetitive, but I hope it's really getting to you and you're starting to think more intentionally about them, because your support system should be full of people, again, who challenge you to grow, who help you see things from different angles, who aren't afraid to ask you the tough questions, who aren't afraid to help push you to evolve, right? Those people who will help you become the person you're meant to be. You are, and when you expand your support system with intention, you're creating an environment that nourishes you emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And that's so important in having a life that is full of quality. That's what you want. You want a life that's full of quality. And your support system, if it's intentional, it'll help you with that. And that leads me to another aspect of our support systems, which is recognizing when you need help. If you're like me and a lot of other women, you've gotten used to doing it all yourself, right? And so asking for help feels like a weakness for you, like you're failing. But my girlie, recognizing you need help is one of the wisest things you can do for yourself and for others. Because, first of all, it's not a sign of failure, it's an acknowledgement that you're human and humans are meant to lean on each other because we are social creatures. You can't do it alone, my girlie. You can't. No matter how much you try to, all of the self made millionaires, billionaires, whatever that you see, they have a whole team of people. They have a whole support system that you're not seeing. But I want to touch on when to recognize you do need help. Sometimes our mind or our body is like crying out for help, and we think, okay, it's just life when it's not. These are ways that your body and your mind are literally telling you, hey, we need help. You need help. So maybe you are constantly exhausted. Like even after you get a full night's sleep, you're still waking up extremely exhausted. Like, throughout the day, you're exhausted, or you are battling anxiety that just won't go away. Even when there's nothing really stressing you out, you still have like all this anxiety pent up and you're not understanding why. Or another thing, you're just overwhelmed by everything on your plate and you're unable to focus or even remember what you're supposed to be doing next because of how many things you need to be doing. And you can't remove anything because you have to get all of this done. These are real signs, but that you need support and that you need help. Something to look for physically or things to look at physically is when you are experiencing muscle tension, when you're experiencing headaches, when you are experiencing digestive issues that seem to like pop up without explanation. These can all be signs that you are taking on a lot. And if you keep ignoring them, they'll get worse over time. And that brings me to the last thing I'm going to touch on tonight, which is the fear of being a burden. This is something we all deal with at some point. We convince ourselves that everyone else has enough on their plate. And so asking for help would just add to someone's stress, right? Add to their plate, which we don't want to do. We don't want to overwhelm them. But girlie, the people who truly care about you will never see you as a burden. They'll want to help you as much as they can and within what's in their limits and their bandwidth of helping, because helping is a way to strengthen the bond between you, right? And this fear of being a burden usually comes from societal pressures that tell us as women we always have to be strong, we have to be independent, and we have to handle everything ourselves. And when you let someone in, when you show them that you're human, it creates a space where real, authentic relationships and connections can flourish. To me, those are the foundations of a strong support network. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people don't feel supported. That's why a lot of us feel so alone because we're hiding who we are, we're hiding our true self, and that's not good. That's not good for you. That's not good for society. That's not good for us as women. When you open up to someone, you are giving them the opportunity to show up for you. And that is a gift. I don't care what anyone says, that is a gift. You're not taking from them. You're allowing your connection and your relationship to grow deeper, to be rooted in trust and mutual respect. That's how strong support networks are formed. And when you're on the receiving end of that, you learn how to return the favor. And it creates a cycle of support that feels safe and healthy and good for everyone involved. The more you allow yourself to reach out, the more you create an environment where others feel comfortable doing the same. And over time, this creates a network of people who see your value. And please, my girlie, remember you're never a burden to the right people. All right, my girlie, tonight we've dug deep into the power of support networks and how they can completely transform the quality of our lives, which means building a strong support system isn't just about leaning on others when things are tough. It's about growth, connection, and thriving together. And quality always tops quantity when it comes to meaningful connections in your support system. So take a moment and think about your own support system. Are you surrounded by the connections you need to thrive, or is there space for more intentional relationships in your life? And of course, to help with this, I've created a free resource, your support network blueprint, which is a guide that'll help you evaluate and strengthen your support network. You can find it in the show notes or in the YouTube description box. Before we wrap up, let's talk about next week's episode. So, next week, we're diving into seasonal depression and realistic ways to pick yourself up when the weight of the season starts to get heavy. To close out our time this evening, remember cultivating a strong support network is essential for enhancing the quality of your life. And if I remember correctly, I think Rihanna said it best, I'm only as good as my team. So make sure you're surrounding yourself with support networks that reflect a foundation of growth, resilience, and lasting fulfillment. Don't forget to sign up for our email newsletter for exclusive content, free resources, and the best holiday goodies. Also, don't miss this week's deep dive, which is available on Instagram Reels this Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific. And that's it for tonight's episode, my girlie. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm so glad to have you on this journey. If you've enjoyed this episode, go ahead and tap that follow or subscribe button and leave a review. It lets me and the algorithms know you're really here to grow, learn, and say. You can also find me and Talks with SAE on Instagram at Talks with SAE. And be sure to share this episode and the podcast with your girlies so they can say as well. Again, thank you, my girlie, for joining me, and more importantly, thank you for existing. Until next time, self-love helps.